Hey everybody, welcome back to the Four Hauntsmen. We figured just like our Disney park locally, we have 999 other podcasts talking about Halloween Horror Nights, and we need it to be the 1,000th. With us, we've got Paul.
Oh, yeah, hey.
Silent.
Hello, I am here.
He's afraid to say anything after our recent Zoom debacle. We've got Drew.
Greetings.
And Captain Tom.
Who dis? New Skype.
I don't remember the last time that we recorded anything.
I feel like it might have been before Halloween Horror Nights last year.
No, we did actually do one Halloween Horror Nights like wrap-up show last year.
No, we didn't.
Well, I shouldn't say wrap-up. Like, it happened, I think, sometime after the first 2 or 3 weeks.
I don't remember at all, dude.
Yeah, I remember doing it.
Everything is a blur with this quarantine.
Drew and I have been recording stuff all the time. We've been live streaming video games.
We've been getting them Warzone dubs.
Yeah.
October 17th, 2019 was our last episode. It was after Kyle went to Scream Again in Netherworld.
Oh, and then it's
6 months ago, bro.
Scream Again and had the whole inappropriate touching thing after that time or around that time. And
oh my god, we've missed so much.
Netherworld, I went back to Netherworld since that time for the Christmas event. That was pretty awesome. And then I went to 13th floor for Valentine. I think it was for Valentine's Day. I think so.
You're just an old softy.
We only had 3 episodes
we did. It was
2019.
Valentine's Day. It was like a Love Bites thing. Yeah, so I'm still doing haunts, but you guys, you just like in hibernation.
Well, I was in the we don't, we actually did have a Valentine's Day thing around here. I just didn't go to it, so I'm slacking on my responsibilities.
Yeah, actually, when I went to Netherworld, we met up with Ruby Songbird there. And we did the collector treated us to an escape game while we were there, and we actually solved it in the time. I'm really not a fan of escape games, but they did a great haunt for Christmas, and we beat it. We beat the escape room at least, and there was a lot of snow, but it was cold. Holy cow! Lone Mountain, Georgia, in December is cold. So
as soon as you cross that border, bro, it's like it drops 20 degrees.
Yeah, it's true. And you're in the mountains. At least Stone Mountain. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here because our friends...
The horror!
HHN Nightmares, again, have come through with their second version of their speculation map for Halloween Horror Nights on both coasts, too. So...
Nice.
We've got all kinds of haunted stuff to talk about, but I guess the first piece is you could wonder, before we jump ahead, because I think everyone is looking forward to Halloween Horror Nights, but the big question is it even gonna happen?
Nope.
Yeah, I kind of think it's very unlikely.
I'm going to go with the assumption during this entire podcast that we are going to definitely have it. Or it'd be a very short podcast.
Yeah. I honestly, I feel like it'll happen. I know, like, April, whatever date it is, April 22nd, it doesn't feel like it would. But I think, like, some states are already starting to reopen as of this recording date. I have a feeling, that something
Well, I mean,
will
let's clarify that, though. The states are reopening, but this is, I hate to put this out there because I
Ill-advised.
have a lot of family in Georgia. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why we go to Netherworld and Six Flags and stuff. But I mean, come on. They're operating under the guise of natural selection at this point. Because the first things that they open up are tattoo parlors, massage parlors, haircut places,
for some reason,
bowling alleys, fitness clubs, nail places, all places that when they ask the government, well, how could you possibly socially distance yourself during a tattoo? And they're like, well, the people can be creative.
Come on.
You ever see those pictures or like videos of people in China getting a haircut where like the person has like basically like grabbers on and they're doing it from like feet away? Like it's just ridiculous.
They're gonna need like the big robot from the Rob Zombie Scare Zone with the long arms to be able to like cut hair.
Maybe they'll all be animatronics this year.
Yeah.
Maybe that Gremlin's house is real.
With states opening up, I don't take it as like really states opening up at this point, you know.
No, I just take it as a sign that people are getting impatient and something's going to happen by September that would result in some event opening. Now, personal opinion, as the 30th anniversary of the event, or 30th year of the event, I should say, I would rather it not happen than be shitty. Oh, well, yeah, I can edit that out. Than be
you just go for it.
I would rather it not happen than not be good. You know, it's the 30th year. It's a big deal. You know, thinking back on HHN 25, HHN 20, you know, those years that are years that I attended and are some of the most memorable years that I attended the event. And I was looking forward to the same for HHN 30. In fact, you know, I've been going for a number of years now, and I'm like, and, you know, much like Tom, I travel to Orlando to go to the event. And I was like, you know what? After HHN 30, unless there's some crazy concept that I can't possibly not go, I was ready to skip a year, like take a break. But just because I figured HHN 30 would be like a great like capper for a little while, and maybe travel somewhere other than Florida and California for a year. But, you know, at this point, if it doesn't happen, I guess, you know, I've got to delay that for a year and go next year.
So today on the news, John Sproul's, who is the CEO of Universal Orlando Resort, which I've never heard of him.
I've never heard his name until today.
But he gave a decent interview, which basically said even for just getting the parks up and running, I mean, it doesn't look optimistic for that stuff to happen soon, but their thought process for opening the parks would involve temperature scanning, and I'm not sure if it would be every person or every other person at this point, as well as everything being virtual queue, all of the rides, virtual queue. So, you know, that should give an indication or a leading indicator to how is Halloween Horror Nights going to exist, because they would have to do the same thing. There's
But
no
how
way
on earth
they
are people going to distance themselves if
There's no way
everyone's
to
just
do it.
walking around the park? You know, like
I mean, a virtual queue is still a queue, right? You still show up within a certain time period, and you still have to wait
Still
in
gonna be
line
sad.
for a little bit.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, but they could block it off to like however many people, and then I guess like when you go to the grocery store or anything with like blue spaces or something for
that's
people
true.
to stand.
But just
I'm-
the general park, like, so let's say like you get a virtual time for, you know, like during the regular hours, like Men in Black and you know, and everyone else has virtual times for stuff. People are still wandering. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, do you literally expect people to just be like sitting on the sides of the streets, like 6 feet apart from each other? You know, like that's why I like, for me, I think it's difficult. I don't see the parks reopening anytime soon as much as people want to see it. I know that like the pressure's on to make money and stuff like that, but ultimately the guest experience is probably going to result in like a loss of money because of like people getting tickets refunded because they're having a miserable time and like this kind of stuff. No one's going to be buying tickets. It's going to be all like locals coming, pass holders and stuff like that. It's just putting everyone at risk. You know, like if people want to come, that's cool, but the employees of the parks are being put at risk for a half-assed experience.
Well, and I said this, when we had a smaller like Zoom chat with Paul and myself and folks last week, right? Like by no stretch of the imagination do any of the theme park scare employees make, they're not doing this to make a windfall. They're doing it because they love to do what they're doing, but they're not making a lot of money. And the risk of getting up in somebody's face to scare them, I mean, unless you think you're going to scare somebody from 10 or 15 feet away, You know, if you're in a contained house or something, you know, is it worth making $11 an hour, you know, or whatever, you know, at that rate to potentially go home after the first week and have coronavirus?
Mm.
You know,
I
you're in
mean,
a damp, dark space where, you know, I hate to say it, like every week, I mean, every year when you go the first week or first 2 weeks, you get sick. It's
Yeah.
usually the flu, you know, or a bad cold or whatever. And
Everyone touching everything and just being in this area with all these people all the time. But
I know that everybody's just wanting to go so badly, and so do I, and we all love the event. But it sounds absolute. So here's your little 6 foot by 6 foot square, sir. Stand here, wait for your little buzzer to go off so you can go walk through the house 6 feet apart. It's going to be It's something that I have zero interest in attending. So, and I think that what you're saying is that seems to be the kind of the ongoing thing. People are like, well, I don't want it to be different. Well, it's going to be different.
yeah,
It's going to be different if it happens at all. That's why I don't see it happen at all. And I'm sorry to be Mr. Doom and Gloom, but you know, how can they reasonably make it an entertaining and safe atmosphere without doing something incredibly drastic that would change the event for the worse?
Yeah. And I agree, you know, when it comes, if it was HHN 32, right? Like whatever. You know, I mean, I shouldn't say whatever. I'd still be looking forward to the event, but it's 30. You know, it's 30 years since the start of the event. It's an anniversary year. You want to do it right. If it's going to be abbreviated or altered in a way that is ineffective, then or honestly, more so than ineffective, unsafe. I would say delay it. You know, you can. Go ahead.
I'll say one thing because I feel like we shouldn't dwell on it too much just because it's just overly negative. You know what I mean? And like, you know, let's talk about like the rumors and stuff like that. But I think ultimately that we would all agree, and I think most people would agree, that instead of having the event the way that most people feel it would happen this year, I think we're all just better off waiting until next year and making it bigger and better than ever kind of thing. You know, you'd hope by next September that everything should be in the clear for the most part, you know?
Yeah.
And market it where, you know, HHN is back. Jack is back for HHN 30. It's bigger and badder than ever. Maybe you include a little bit of Islands of Adventure in it. You know what I mean? Like, just something.
Jack is behind coronavirus, and he comes out of behind.
Well, you know, just do a little video with the Terra Queen coming out of her little chamber after all these years of sleep, because this is the year she's supposed to come out, and no one's there, and so she goes back to sleep, and we'll see her at HHM 45.
So, I mean, you could do something alternative here, right? I mean, and this is not the solution. You know, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but you know, there's work underway to build things out at this point.
Absolutely.
So,
correct.
you know, why not? You could build things. I mean, you could even just have one cast and put them in each of the houses for one night and film things. You could film it virtual reality wise if you wanted to, and then charge people to go virtually through the houses.
You know, I would say
at this point, I would pay for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would pay for it. I would pay for, and honestly, you know, it's because I've always said that about some of these theme parks is I would pay for an official walkthrough of these Halloween Horror Nights houses, or you know, videos of the rides or the experience. I know we get it all through, you know, as people who, you know, in this YouTube generation, we get a lot of that for free through YouTube, but it's not the same as a professionally filmed, you know, go through the house video. I would absolutely pay for that. I would pay. I have a DVD. Of a documentary from HHN 12, I think, or you know, whatever year it was in Islands of Adventure, or one of the years it was in Islands of Adventure. I still have that DVD, and I still watch it like every other year.
75% of us have PlayStation virtual reality at this point too. I mean, it's easy enough to be able to go through 360 camera wise, and you know, I'm not talking about like Joe Blow with an iPhone or Samsung, you know, 3D stuff, but you know, quality low light stuff and film things, and I'd pay for that.
Yep, I would.
I mean,
1,000%.
If they had it, you know, open, and we talk about like lower crowds and this whole hoopla thing, I mean, chances are you're not going to be able to get through all of the houses in one night, probably not even a fraction of it. I mean, I think the other piece that they're going to do to limit crowds is you cut away the multi-night passes, right?
Yep. You lose your out-of-towners right there off the bat. Your hotel rates, your hotel occupancy rates go down through the toilet.
Yeah, I mean, that's what overinflates the attendance every year, and it's been only getting worse and worse because people buy it and it's just a hangout,
Yeah.
But
that's what I
here's
do.
the thing. If they're building the bones of these structures, which, they are, they're still filing permits and things like that. We talked on, I don't know, it's one of the other conversations Kyle and I have had about that rumored sci-fi event for the spring. If you build the structures, you can just really kind of start early preparation for that stuff. Still have, a springtime, winter even event. After Christmas, but before spring really kicks off, right? The January, February time frame to bring people to the park. You can certainly use the bones of these things, delay Halloween Horror Nights, but still produce something sci-fi themed, which was the rumor that was out there. Or even with some of these properties, like Haunting of Hill House, that season 2 is coming for that. Beetlejuice, Universal Monsters. These are concepts that that are horror based, but aren't necessarily strictly relegated to the Halloween time frame.
Yeah.
It's just a way to if they're actually doing work, depending on how far along they are in the construction, they could certainly reuse those facilities for other things. Especially if the rumors are true about an alternative event to kind of keep that Halloween Horror Nights audience coming throughout earlier in the year.
I say we pretend like it's going to happen.
Well, I think we should. I think for all intents and purposes, there's a lot of good stuff to talk about it as the speculation map that Kyle talked about.
Yeah.
I mentioned a couple of them there. Beetlejuice.
Don't say it again.
I'm just gonna look forward to it like it's coming. I mean, at this point, everything that I've had tickets for, been looking forward to, has been canceled.
Yeah.
It would just be another one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But this would be the one that I think would really upset me more than anything. But I'm going forward as if it's happening. I'm hoping for the best, expecting the worst, more or less. But it just gives us something to hopefully look forward to, like a light at the end of the tunnel. But it's a distraction right now, more than anything, right? So,
I mean, this Corona's already shit on one of my trips from autograph.
It's our soundboard guy. Oh, Kyle, we just got hit for
when that showed up on the map. That was the first thing I could think of, dude. Is that the end of that house is going to be like the best, bro.
It could be the cartoon, it could be the movie, it could be the play, it could be everything.
Or we could be like Attractions Magazine and assume that it's closing on Broadway because it's coming to Halloween Horror Nights. That was literally a thing that they said.
Oh.
But they're going. The play is going to tour.
They ignored that. They just went for the clicks. Yeah. It's called journalism, Kyle.
Hashtag journalism.
The play was phenomenal.
It was
awesome.
Awesome.
Time at the play.
I did not see the play. I was there when it was playing, but I saw To Kill a Mockingbird. I chose poorly.
Yes, which was
damn
so
good.
much more
Don't
important.
Get me wrong. It was actually really good. I don't want to put that out there that it was bad, but Beetlejuice. And I didn't. But here's the thing: I didn't know Beetlejuice was gonna end when I went. I mean, we talked a little bit about this previously. The Beetlejuice house. I am not the world's biggest fan of the movie. I think there's a lot of visual stuff there that could really make for a good house, though. It is interesting to see a Warner Brothers property so heavily speculated, but I think it's just because they already have the licensing somehow from the previous.
I think that Beetlejuice is riding in popularity right now with the play and stuff too, but also. I'm not sure that they anticipated the groundswell that happened when they closed the show, and I think that, I'm going to say this with Drew getting upset, but we literally closed the Beetlejuice show, which was one of the best things that was in the park, in my opinion, and then disaster. And you had an outcry of people because we got stuck with a piece of the backlot tour from Hollywood as part of the replacement for the two time sinks, at the park. And Beetlejuice was well loved. I mean, it was always attended well, but now maybe they bring it back and they hope that people are happy about it.
I mean, he's still wandering the park every day, and people are always stopping, taking pictures with him and stuff like that. So
It's true.
he's gone but not forgotten.
It's a property that's still surprisingly relevant, right? Like
He's also announcing Monday Night Raw on a regular basis.
What?
I don't even know what that means, Kyle. That's some joke that I should have not understood.
I watch wrestling. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Mike Rome,
Oh,
he was, in case you guys didn't know, like he was backup Jack in Halloween Horror Nights 25. He was also Beetlejuice for some time. So.
Oh, did not know that.
Yeah.
Now we
I knew about the Jack thing, but I didn't know about the Beetlejuice thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I like the movie. I enjoy the movie. It was one of the very first kind of edgier, kind of horror-ish movies that I watched with my daughters when they were little. So, I mean, it's kind of got a special little place for me when they were young. And they kind of, now they're complete horror fans like I am. So it kind of started that. So I love the movie and the property and everything like that. And I look forward to this one when we go through on opening weekend in September, because it's definitely happening.
What? Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say.
This one too is one of the ones that when I don't know if it was our podcast or if when I did Inside Universal, one of those, that was like my bold prediction was going to be that they were doing a Beetlejuice house coming up this year.
Oh.
Ghostbusters, was it the greatest house of all time? No, but I'm glad that they did it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad I got to walk through and experience that. And it definitely struck a chord with people with all the merch and things like that. And Beetlejuice just seemed like the next logical choice in terms of having something that's like a little bit 80s, a little bit not scary, to kind of appeal to everybody.
Fun.
And the visuals are there. Not everything that comes to the event has to be scary. Something can be horror-ish, or something can kind of give you Halloween vibes, and that's what Beetlejuice does. I think it would be a really cool house. It would be your visual stunner of the year in terms of the IPs based on the other ones that are like rumored. That would be your like, wow, that's crazy that they did this, But
yeah, what's Michael Keaton doing these days? I mean, he could work in the house.
He's doing Marvel movies, Kyle. He's doing Spider-Man 3. Well, I mean, not right now. But
he's going to do Spider-Man 3, even though he was the... oh my god, dude.
He was the Vulture.
Yeah.
He'll really do anything that they pay him to do, bro. He was in that Need for Speed movie. He would attend the opening of an envelope for a paycheck. He doesn't care.
Maybe he'll be there opening
he
night.
could be out in front of the house like, it's showtime.
Well, that's... I tweeted it. So, on the speculation map, it has it at the same place that Ghostbusters was last year. Which is probably partially true and partially false. I know that the soundstage that Ghostbusters was in last year apparently is no longer going to be used for HHN, but they can still have the house enter that way and just use one of the other ones like behind it.
Are they busy using it to record TNA wrestling?
No, I don't know what the hell they're doing. All I was told is that it's not going to be used for HHN anymore. So I don't know what that means, but I think the perfect spot for this house, I tweeted about this a couple of days ago, is where Graveyard Games was last year.
Yeah.
And they can recreate like that graveyard outside of the building before you walk in. They've got the face character Beetlejuices that they can mic up and have kind of talking to people before they go in, as he's like sitting on top of on the grave with the Beetlejuice neon sign pointing at the door. Like, that sounds so cool. That sounds much
but
better.
I'm gonna be honest here. Like, every year I go, I'm like, can they just find a different place to put those back two houses that doesn't require a mile and a half of walking?
Yeah, that's as much of an HHN tradition as
exactly.
It's good for Pokemon though.
So far
for getting those steps in.
Yeah,
I need the express golf cart pass is what I need.
You can get some Heelys.
Nice.
Bust my ass, dude.
So Beetlejuice, yeah. Drew made a good point about Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters may not have been the best house last year, or even the best house, ever, for sure. But it was definitely memorable and a really good representation of the movie. So, taking a similar stance with Beetlejuice, I think it'd be really fun.
They made a movie about the Ghostbusters house?
Yeah. It was just like the house. So, right next to Ghostbusters on this, or excuse me, Beetlejuice on this speculation map is
Secret Ip.
Secret Ip. No, Secret Ip is in the back. That's one of those. That's the far house.
But that's the fun thing to talk about. What could Secret Ip be?
Maybe Ip Man. Ip Man 4 just came out.
I don't know. I'm gonna remain silent.
I'm not. I'm gonna say exactly what I think it's gonna be.
Oh.
I think it's going to be one of two things, either Creepshow or Conjuring.
I thought Candyman.
Well, now you got to realize too, Candyman was a big time rumor because of the new movie coming out, but who knows if the new movie's going to come out?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's be real. That's going to come right to DVD or streaming anyway.
Yeah, I would see. I don't know about. I think Creepshow or Candyman. For sure. Conjuring, I think it'd be... Well, I don't know that I even enjoy Conjuring as a property, just because the whole point of the Conjuring is that so much is in, not shown, right? It's just a bunch of bookcases and stuff moving. So, I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to, if it was... Creepshow would be cool, but...
Yeah. Yes, I think it would be cool too. God, yeah. we've been talking about Conjuring for the last 6 years, and at some point we're going to get it.
At some point, yeah. Especially since Warner Brothers has kind of stopped their their event. Certainly not doing it this year.
I thought they were. So I mean, that's the odd thing. I don't know. I mean, I didn't go to enough of their events, so I don't know if they dropped me off the thing or the person that was my contact left or whatever at Warner Brothers. They kept asking me to go cover the Friends set out at the back lot. So
was it scary? Yeah. Was it horror themed? Was Joey gonna pop out with a knife? Like, what's up with the Friends?
Dude, set? I mean, I wasn't paying for a flight to go over to California to go check out the Friends set. So,
do you have a thought on the secret IP, Kyle?
Who, me? Yeah, I said maybe Candyman.
Oh, you did say that. Candyman. Oh, snap! We said it.
One of the reasons that we haven't talked about this at all, but that one guy that tweets the clues out there where he rhymes.
The Ifrit.
Yeah, the Ifrit. He definitely
Allerton
pointed towards the Conjuring franchise at one point.
I think The Conjuring's so boring, dude. Like, I can't even remember what's happened in any of those movies to keep it straight at this point.
The Conjuring franchise includes
there's a new
Nun
one coming out
and Annabelle.
Yeah, there's so much material.
It's hard to keep it straight because it's like, we're going to start with the true story and then we're just going to go all over the place. And some movies are going to take place after and some will be before.
I mean, we're not all old like you, so we have decent memories. We can remember shit.
Look, I can't remember any of that stuff.
Drew, what do you think? Come on, throw something out there. Secret Ip.
Secret Ip. I don't know.
Bill and Ted!
Like I said, it's probably best to just stay silent on it, but I guess... I mean, Gremlins always shows up on the maps. I think that's maybe with Beetlejuice, there's too much of that throwback.
Whoa, what's that?
Not too scary stuff going on.
Isn't Gremlins on the Hollywood? Oh no, it's not.
No, it was on
Gremlins
the speculation
was
map
on
for
this
Orlando.
It was on the Orlando map originally in a new location instead of the Shrek building.
Oh yeah.
But now the Shrek building is back on the speculation map. There's all kinds of shit going everywhere.
Right.
I don't really have a good guess. If you would just ask me, I would have said Creepshow, but I don't necessarily think that they would need to keep that a secret.
No, probably not.
Sabrina was on the original map. They took that off. That seems like something that would have been a secret, but since they already put it out there, I don't think they would necessarily retract it.
Plus, they already have Hill House, which is another Netflix property.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Netflix and Universal are like, let's print money together, man. That's great.
So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's how
well,
you. I mean, that's probably a good place to sell some Netflix merchandise, like The Haunting of Hill House. I only made it 2 episodes in.
you need to watch that, man.
I
It's so
know.
good.
But the first 2 episodes were like, this is us,
Keep
but with a
that,
couple of
keep
ghosts
it.
in the background. Does it get
That's
scarier?
what the secret IP is. It's the This Is Us house.
This is us house.
I don't know if I'd say scarier, Paul, but I'd say that one thing that Haunting of Hill House has going for it, and I don't know if Drew and Kyle, did you guys watch it?
I haven't seen it
Dude,
yet.
I don't watch TV.
Son of a bitch.
TV is for suckers.
So here's my take on Haunting of Hill House. It is visually stunning. It's a great visual. There, and even like the few ghosts that they do have that you get good looks at are visually really, really cool. So I mean, I could see how Hill House would be a very visually cool house. Is it a scary show? Not really scary, but it's more of a thriller, I guess you'd say.
Well, if they have The Haunting of Hill House, that was Mike Flanagan. What's the guy who made that show? He directed Doctor Sleep. Maybe the secret IP is Doctor Sleep.
Oh boy, that movie was terrible.
It was so bad. But it's an excuse to break out those shining things out of mothballs.
They filmed that movie in Georgia, like in Covington, and the reason, like, when we were watching the movie, I was like, oh, this is hilarious. Like, they showed Elm Street as one of the streets, and you would think it would be a nod to Friday the 13th, but it's a street that I took a picture with when we were in that area, because right across the street is where Tommy Jarvis gets thrown into jail in Friday the 13th Part 6. And I was like, this is the same town square. Like, they just use the same areas over and over again in movies. But anyway, that's the only thing that really interests me in Dr. Sleep.
Tommy Jarvis.
I have been chosen.
I have been chosen.
So I guess those are the 3 IPs, right? Oh no, 4. I guess if you include Universal Monsters, even though it's a Universal property.
Well, the IP is the underlying part there, which is the music by Billie Eilish.
Fair, yeah. I'm actually not upset about that. The only problem is these Universal Monsters houses having been going for a number of years now. I feel like they all kind of blend together. The Universal Monsters houses, they're all kind of like, here's your castle, here's your dungeon, here's your mirror room, here's your columns. They all kind of they don't do visually as much different from year to year with the Universal Monsters houses.
I think this one would. So my guess would be that this one would be more in line with what Hollywood had 2 years ago. So our house last year was just like straight up like a Halloween Horror Nights Universal Monsters house.
Great
one that was in Hollywood 2 years ago, the one that had the music from Slash and everything, it also had like, I guess you'd say like a bright color palette at times.
Yeah, like the black light type stuff.
Like the merchandise that they sell at the park right now with the lanyards and the shirts and stuff, where it's like pink and green and like purple and all that kind of stuff. I think it would kind of be along the lines of that, especially given the whole idea of having a soundtrack to it. So in the first map, they had an entire house under the Billie Eilish, thing, like a Billie Eilish house. Billie Eilish has been rumored. Probably, I first heard a rumor about Billie Eilish back in November. Okay, so I totally believe that in some capacity she is involved for sure.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's going to bring asses in the house.
Whether it be a Lagoon show with her music, or I think this is a
Wait a minute. Her Billie Eilish is a girl?
Yeah, dude.
Oh, I thought it was a dude.
Kyle with the soundboard.
You've never heard that, Tom?
No.
What? Dude, that was like the biggest sign of the last 10 years.
Tom doesn't know who Macklemore is or Travis
Macklemore what?
Nothing.
Trevor who?
But I think this is like the perfect compromise for something like that, because I think that she has some songs that have like slower, like creepier beats and stuff that it could work.
They literally just have mixes of her saying "duh."
I'm actually okay with it. You know, I said this before. Like, I think Billie Eilish doing the score or the songs for a house, I think it'd be cool.
Dude,
You know,
I would totally buy a T-shirt that just says like, "It's HHN 30,"
Duh.
and in parentheses, "duh." Don't steal that idea. Drew and I are gonna get quick to Spreadshirt.
In all seriousness, I think I love the classic monsters, the Universal classic monsters. Love them, love them, love them. Anything they do with them, I'm in for. And if they throw some little girls' music on top of it and it sounds cool and funky, sounds great. I'm in.
She
As
did
long
a
as it
really.
happens.
If you guys
Huh?
listen to
Yeah.
Howard Stern, like she did a really good interview with Howard Stern, probably about a year ago. But I mean, she's super talented, and I think it's her brother that writes with her also. Like, super talented people. That
Well, you know an awful lot about this girl. What, you got a crush?
no, dude, we've got the record.
Hope not.
I mean, it's. I wouldn't mind seeing it. I mean, that's what I think Paul and I said this on the Cheap Seats channel at one point when we were just talking. Like, you had nothing but like metal stuff year after year, and I'm not complaining about that. Trust
Right.
me. Like Alice Cooper, and last year Rob Zombie featured so prominently, and out in Hollywood you had Slash, you had Black Sabbath.
yeah, but they got to appeal to something other than 40-year-old white guys. So
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, so you get Billie Eilish. I mean, like that house will have the biggest line every night.
oh yeah,
Whatever they do with Billie Eilish.
she's on everything now. Every time you see like it's a stay-at-home concert, there's been like 3 of them in the past week on television. They all have Billie Eilish on them. She is definitely like the it thing right now. Now next year, HHN 31, who knows?
Post Malone.
But this year would definitely be the right time for Billie Eilish.
The Wolfman House with music by Marshmello.
I'd go.
Oh yeah, me too.
That would bring me to the event. No. So we got an IP next, the Pumpkin Original.
Yes.
The Pumpkin Original. So basically, it's the Scare Zone.
Pumpkin Man.
There's so much cool stuff you could do with pumpkin. I went to South Florida Fairgrounds last Christmas, last Halloween.
You never know with you, Kyle.
I had problems with that event because of the way that they set up the queues, but the creativity and construction and the makeup, like everything was awesome. You would never think it at face value, but if you were in Florida or South Florida and you're looking for a haunt, hands down, aside from the line management, awesome stuff. But they did a pumpkin house, or they have a house like you will literally walk through a pumpkin and the stuff that's dangling in your face are the strands of pumpkins with like seeds, and they pipe in the pumpkin smell as you're going through. It was literally it was amazing.
Well,
The house was amazing.
I mean, here's the thing, pumpkin. If you throw pumpkin, the next one is bedtime stories. Like, one of my favorite years for Halloween Horror Nights was 18, because it was all like folklore, Halloween folklore, fairy tales, that kind of stuff. If pumpkin is basically just a house full of iconic Halloween stuff, like pumpkins and cornfields and scarecrows and stuff like that, I am all for it. I think that it would be nice to have something just that looks like Halloween.
So here, my like prediction or my interpretation of this house, or the idea of this house is, so last year we had Yeti because of the success of Slaughter Cinema. I think this is going to be like an extended play on like the pumpkin guts part that was in Slaughter Cinema.
Oh, okay.
The whole farmer thing with the pumpkins, guts, and all that shit. I think it's going to be kind of an extended play on that. That house kind of is the potential to breed other houses from it. Just taking that idea, what was well received, and they'll know what was well received based on that custom T-shirt thing that they had, and people buying those IPs onto T-shirts that they made themselves. So that's my take, instead of just saying the easy take of it's the Central Park Scare Zone always has that pumpkin guy walking around.
Yep.
he gets his own house. I'm going to be different and say that it's going to spawn off of what they created in Slaughter Cinema into like a bigger scale, just like how they did for Yeti.
That's a solid idea.
They actually put some thought into that, Drew.
Look at that. That's why you're on the podcast. You're the only useful one here.
I literally
really.
just thought of that on the spot.
Not only are you handsome, but you are wise.
I am damn handsome and damn wise. You got that. I get my good looks from my dad.
Yes, you do, son.
So
I don't know what to say to follow up.
so bedtime stories. Speaking of bedtime stories, I mean, I think that's your probably interpretation of like nursery rhymes and stuff like that, like Little Miss Muffet, that kind of stuff. I would imagine.
Well,
Yeah.
so this house was like a no-brainer because this is the one that was technically like developed last year.
Oh, the Tooth Fairy type thing, right?
Yeah, so
Yes.
it basically is the same thing, and then it got the last minute boot for the Us house. So you'd imagine that this was so like I was told a while ago that they start with the tent houses for development, and then they work their way around the park.
Mhm.
This one was like, well, we already got this, and on the map, it's literally in the same location that the Us house was in.
Oh yeah.
So this house was designed, sealed, and delivered, ready to go since last May. So this is the no-brainer of the century. I mean, they can do the Boogeyman, the Tooth Fairy, all kinds of stuff like that.
Will it feature The Rock
I mean,
as the Tooth Fairy?
For lucky.
Bedtime stories featuring The Rock.
Well, I mean, the real question is it going to feature the storyteller?
that's true. Now that would be an interesting tie-in for the whole anniversary thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, really, no one gives a shit about the storyteller.
Oh, stop! I love the storyteller.
I think for me, so I went to HHN 13. That was my first year at the event, and I adored it. The director was the icon that year, and I gotta tell you, I didn't go back until 17. I think was the next year I went. That was the year that Jack was there, the Carnival of Carnage. I'm sorry.
Fine. That was my first.
Yeah, it's awesome year. Awesome. I mean, that was a fantastic year with, they had Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, they had a bunch of IPs that year. But I skipped HHN, I skipped those 14, 15, 16. And I got to tell you, 14 is one of the years, I think it was 14, where the Terra Queen, the Terra Quintus, Croentus stuff came in. I am genuinely sad that I missed that year because that has like all the stuff that I love about Halloween Horror Nights, like the backstories, the original property, the complicated mythology. That was all part of that Terra Queen stuff. That year they had like the secret game that you could play, and they had the opening ceremony and the closing ceremony where the queen went back into the tree and all that stuff. And the whole point of bringing her back this year is that I guess she has slumbered since then, even though we've seen her in some scare zones, and they're bringing her back for this year. And so that maybe storytellers, in bedtime stories, then the Terra Queen would be the Terra Quintus, Cruentus. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Crumpets.
Crumpet, the Terra Krampus house.
It's the Krampus. Terra Krampus.
I would like Krampus to come back.
I think that's
If HHN gets canceled, they just come back for one house for the holiday season if they're open by then, and it will be Krampus. And we will just lap it constantly.
Yeah.
I love that house.
4-hour wait.
That would be
Virtual
4
hour wait.
Yeah. So I'm excited about Terra Quintus as one of the rumored houses. I think there's a lot of cool imagery that could be there, and that's one of the soundstage houses. So I'm excited about that one. That honestly, out of all of them, that's probably one of the ones I'm most excited about.
That one seems like, just like Drew saying about the bedtime stories one. I think that Terra Crumpets, that seems like it seems like a lock.
This is one of those things that, because like we said, they knew that 30 was going to be the 15 years. Like they've been sitting on ideas for it.
Yeah.
It was literally just the matter of putting it all together, the glue, and getting it done. I think after, so out of those houses that we've talked about, right? I consider Beetlejuice, Bride, Bedtime Stories, and the Terror Queen ones to be locks. Pumpkin original. I mean, originals you don't really know until they get announced, and Secret IP, who knows what's going on there. The four that are left are like the interesting ones to me.
Yeah.
Not the Terror Crumpets.
The Terror Crumpets is happening.
I think Terror.
They
I
have
know
Terror-
we already decided on a podcast title, but Terror Crumpets kind of sounds like
Jerk.
Terror Crumpets.
That'll be one of the food trucks that they have out by where they did the Starcourt
Right.
Mall.
You have to be socially distanced to get it.
To get your crumpets. So I guess that brings us to, we've got the legendary truth.
Yeah.
This is the one that I am most excited for.
You want the truth.
Out of what they like, the rumored map and all that stuff. The first map, they had a house that said like Cary, Ohio, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where like all of these HHN properties, Graveyard Games, like the drive-in, all this kind of stuff has taken place in Cary, Ohio.
Mhm.
So Legendary Truth was when they did the house, like the Ghost Hunters kind of thing. I think they're going to take the two ideas and kind of mold them together and make it where it's like they're investigating the town of Cary, Ohio, and that's going to be kind of like your HHN anniversary house, where it's going to bring you back to all the original properties that they created themselves. Psychoscarapy, which is in Cary, the drive-in, the Graveyard Games, the cemetery there. So I think it's going to be like your trip down memory lane, but all of HHN lore.
Actually, that'd be
Eddie.
cool, because you make a good point. One of the things that we're not seeing in any of these 10 houses is, in HHN 20, they had the warehouse, or the Hollowed Past, I think.
Which was a terrible house.
I liked it. HHN 25 had the Jack, whatever it was.
Madness
Christmas
and
in
Mayhem.
Hollis.
Damn, dude.
The what?
Christmas in Hollis.
It had the
That was the
anniversary
best part of the house. That was amazing. Yeah.
It was December 24th.
So I guess
That was the greatest house of all time.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah, dude. It was like going to a buffet of houses.
No.
Yeah, dude, that house was amazing.
But I guess Legendary Truth could be the the 30th anniversary house. It's probably not going to be called Legendary Truth, but I like the idea
Maybe.
that this kind of like step through the Cary, Ohio landmarks.
Yeah, remember you had to like do the clues for Legendary Truth the one year, like scan the stuff outside the houses, and then we did the mad scramble to partake in like the virtual reality type house and solving the clues and stuff. And that was one of the most fun nights I've ever had at Halloween Horror Nights, only because like after drinking, like it was in a party with Hate to Fly and our friend Sean, and like we were horsing around with the goggles on and stuff and acting like little kids. But the payoff was ridiculous. It was not worth it, like the virtual reality stuff, but the story continues. And then they did the upsell house, which I don't think that it did too well. And most recently they've sold the badges for the upsell house like at the prop store, like 10 for a buck, all the leftover stuff. So I'd like to see it work,
Well,
because it all ties together, like you said, with Cary and
because at HHN 20, I believe it was, Paul would maybe know.
Okay.
They did have a house where it was like the Legendary Truth. I think it was called Wyandotte Estate or something like that. And it was literally like just a ghost house. It was basically like Ghost Adventures kind of thing, with souls trapped in a house. So it's kind of like.
It was a good house.
It's one,
It was a
yeah,
good
and
house.
I remember the best scare in that house is they had a chair, dude, and it was like a person in a suit that looked like an old school, like cushioned chair you'd find like in your grandparents' house, and the chair would just get up and run at you. And the first time I went through, the chair got me, dude, and I was like, crap my pants. So I think it would be kind of that whole idea of like ghost hunters going into that town. That's my take on the idea.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not what they roll with, it's simply just going to be something ghosty. You know,
The collective. You'll be part of the collective, right?
And I
Am I
do.
getting it right? Like studying the evil.
Well,
I
that was
find it strange that they have it on the map where Hill House is, like next to Hill House, because if they don't go with like the whole idea of it being the city of Cary or whatever, it's going to be two very similar houses next to each other.
actually those are the far houses, right? So looking at the
Yeah.
map, right, Hill House and Legendary Truth are the far ones, whereas F and G are the
Oh,
ten
dude, it's all
houses.
far. It's all far.
It's all far.
Except Shrek, that one's close.
Yeah, we haven't got. Shrek is the unknown original. There's really not much to talk about there. It's unknown.
Let's just make it up and hope for the best.
Yeah. Dungeon of Terror.
Eddie.
That house is usually a property too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Has it ever not? Oh well, I guess the.
The first year it was the Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Yeah, that house was like that was a lot of fun, that house.
Yeah, I didn't mind that house actually.
It was certainly better than the Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oof.
I'm just gonna put it out there. That house was balls.
Oh,
it was
my
fine.
lord. It was,
Halloween
it was
4.
fun.
Halloween 4 was rough. That was.
Halloween, yeah. Well, that is true. Yeah, Halloween 4 was probably even worse.
That end scene was fire.
So the only house we haven't talked about so far is the Dungeon of Terror, which, thankfully someone on YouTube did remind me that was the first Halloween Horror Nights house way back when it was Fright Nights. I knew it had some relevance. I just couldn't remember it on the spot.
The Treehouse of Terror. Horror. I screwed it up.
The Dungeon of Terror. So does anybody know what the original house was all about? Was it just random Halloween crap, or
Basically, from what I understand, it was literally just a mishmash of stuff. So it almost sounds like the idea of what the murder ride is in House of a Thousand Corpses, but just general Halloween horror type stuff, not like going into different serial killers and stuff, but just it's ghosts and goblins and this and that, and
Great video game.
Super Ghosts and Goblins.
I think, and so it's funny because I think this one is probably at least some version of it is going to happen, probably because of that, the history behind it. I think it's funny that they put it in the tent for Men in Black, because the original house was in the Jaws queue, so it's kind of still as close by as it could be.
Yeah.
But back then, that house, someone like I was listening to another podcast, and they were saying that house was like a 15-minute walkthrough because that was the only house that they had. Obviously, you're not going to get that. You're going to get a modernized version of something like that if that's the case. But I think it would just be like your generic mishmash of stuff.
But I think that'd be cool, right? If they somehow recreated or modernize the scenes from the original Dungeon of Terror house, I think that'd be fun. I think
It was also in Sweet 16, correct?
Which, yes, and the storyteller was like the icon of that house that year. I guess you'd say.
Oh yeah, that was the Sweet 16. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's my take on Legendary Truth, Dungeon of Terror, Pumpkin Original, and the Unknown Original.
Oh god.
Here's my take. The originals are always good. The originals, so they do such a good job with that stuff, and they have such a good take and have so much creative freedom to do what they want to in these houses. I have every faith that these are going to be good houses. I mean,
Well, that's a good
really.
take. Like I was worried about what you were going to say, Tom.
Well, I mean, you want me to add a fuck on the end?
Tom's like, fuck them, they all fucking suck.
Oh, they're all good.
There goes the
Really.
sponsors.
All 0 of them.
I'm up for originals. I love their originals. If anything, I wish they'd have more originals and less IPs.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've always felt the same way.
Yep.
Yeah, no, and on the speculation map, it doesn't have any scare zones, but I've got to imagine we'll have some type of anniversary scare zone. And I haven't seen any mention other than fan want of the return of Bill and Ted.
Okay. Well.
So, by the way, just going back to Dungeon of Terror, that's where the Rat Lady had come from as well, right? So, one of the scenes,
Yeah, I
in the
believe
original
so.
house, the guests walked over the Rat Lady, in a glass coffin. So, I don't know if you guys remember the Rat Lady.
I do.
I do.
Yeah. So, Paul, I spoke over you, and I apologize. I'll
Damn
shut
it,
up now.
Kyle! No.
You were saying about Bill and
I
Ted.
said. Yeah, I haven't. There was an article this morning I read on the Orlando Weekly talking about Halloween Horror Nights. The speculation map shows the shows as Academy of Villains and the Lagoon show. I haven't seen anything other than fan desire that Bill and Ted is actually coming back this year.
Yep. First, I can only say this. I'm going to be clear. Like Orlando Weekly, I read it just when they post things just to see just how wildly speculative anything that they possibly say is, because they're 99% of the time wrong and heavily politically leaning these days, and it's a disappointment from what that
And
resource used to be.
most of that stuff is Ken Story, he's just an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, I just think in general.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, as far as so those are the shows. The scare zone wise, there's nothing on the speculation map yet. I think more will be uncovered soon.
So I have a list of all the scare zones here. Would you like?
Them meaning the.
Well, let me read these off.
Instead of it, remember when it was all Walking Dead? It's going to be all Stranger Things scare zones.
Here's the funny thing that we have not talked about, and here's why I think that we as a community are blowing up the 30th anniversary year as a bigger deal than what it really is we haven't talked about Jack at all. Okay? We haven't talked about Jack being in any house. We haven't talked about him being an icon or in a show or anything like that. And so let me throw this out there. Is Jack going to be at 30?
I believe so, in some capacity.
Yeah, I feel like in some capacity, but I'm not gonna lie. I would honestly prefer him not be. I'm ready to give the other icons, some time in the spotlight.
I think you can't not have him.
Everybody wants Jack, dude.
Yeah.
Everybody wants Jack.
But I think Tom is right, where 30 is not a big anniversary year.
What do you do? Wait for 50? And come on,
dude,
how old are people going to be?
I'm not going to make it to 50,
Yeah.
so we better get this rolling.
But just in general, I think it's usually stuff like 20 usually is kind of like they didn't celebrate 20 as much. They came in with a new icon. Fear, he was garbage, whatever. But they had the other guys involved in a minor capacity. 25 was the big one. It seems like it's the quarter ones are like the benchmarks. Like 30 is just based on. Here's the way I look at it. Based on what we see on the speculation map, it's not being treated like a big deal this year.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
But we don't know what the theme is yet either, right? I mean, so it's funny. I had a conversation with Ben, who owns Netherworld last year, and we were talking Halloween Horror Nights of all things, right? So, his take was, and it's true, you have an incredible powerhouse like Universal Studios, and this wealth of icons that they've built up, but then they let them sit to the side, and they're not the central focus of the event. The closest we came recently was like Bone Daddy a couple of years ago, and he wasn't an official icon, so how do you not use the icons every single year, at least a variation of them, or one or two or whatever, and carry a story forward? It's a gigantic miss.
Yeah, they've just been depending on the properties nowadays. Ultimately, it comes down to what the marketing department wants and that kind of stuff, and I think the biggest thing is that they just want everything between Universal Studios in Orlando and Universal Studios in Hollywood basically to be centered around the same advertising.
Yeah,
I think
so
they don't
can
want
reuse
to.
the same shirts.
They can reuse the same stuff. They can put out the same commercial, but they could also make it like, you live here. I mean, we have the same stuff that Orlando does. If this is easier, just come here. Like they don't want. I mean, realistically, the only type of people who are going to go to both are the diehard fans. But for most people, they don't give a shit about Jack or the usher or the storyteller. They care about Billie Eilish. They care about Stranger Things. So that's what it comes down to. I think if the only reason why they would bring Jack back for like a 30th year at this point is fan service and nothing more. This year, maybe since it would be more locally based with all the travel stuff going on, they could do it. But I think that would be the only reason why.
I don't know if it's just hardcore people. I think it used to be, right? So I'm going to just use like an analogy here. Like, Metallica for me as a kid was huge, with Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets. But they blew up on the Black Album. And, to me, Halloween Horror Nights blew up. Their Black Album was Halloween Horror Nights 25. That's when the population and everybody it just blew. I mean, it's such a big boom from that point forward, where there was so much more interest, and it really drove the industry, I think, as a whole. Like all of the haunts, and you have all these other local haunts really kind of opening up and, feeding off of Halloween Horror Nights existing at this point, because, people like, hey, now Halloween Horror Nights, what else is there out there that I can go do?
That's very true.
Yeah. I mean, so it's not just like, it's not the Ride the Lightning fans for wanting to see Jack at this point. I think it's the general population really want to see him there. I mean, literally, like, all of the comments that I get on the channel videos are, if Jack's not there, I don't even want to go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's literally
Sure.
those types of comments. I mean, yeah, I mean, you take it with a grain of salt, right?
Right.
But I mean, I honestly think, it's that big of a driver,
Yeah. Well, so let's just take a poll then. Do you think he'll be there at all, Kyle?
I think he's got to be. I think if there's not some type of representation, whether, because we haven't even gotten the scare zones yet.
Yep.
If you don't have the icons at least in a scare zone and they're not featured in a house, I mean, holy shit. Like, I joke around about Universal hating money sometimes because they close the stores or restaurants and everything too early, or, have shorter hours or whatever whatever it is. I mean, like, you literally, they may as well just be burning their money at that point.
So, Paul, you think he'll be there in some form or fashion?
I would be surprised if he's not.
Okay,
I
think we all agree he'll be there probably.
I'm gonna be the black sheep, and if you put a gun to my head, I would say no.
Because they don't. Said yes.
But I not necessarily.
It's like Mario Party.
I'm telling you, bro.
It's a 1 against 3.
They don't. I hope he is, and I hope I'm wrong. But every year we're like, are they going to have an icon? They're like, oh, the rumor is they're going to have an icon this year. They're going to have an icon this year. Like, they don't do that anymore, you know? So, I mean, I could see him being represented, like you said, in like a scare zone that's kind of like all the icons come. But I just think that ultimately, if there is an event this year, they're going to kind of sweep the whole anniversary under the rug and just focus on stuff like Beetlejuice and things like that more so.
But you already have like Dungeon of Terror. I mean, obviously they're playing up an anniversary. Why would they bring that back? Or the Terror croutons, or
Terror croutons.
We've gone from trumpets to croutons.
Croutons is better.
You just made me realize that my Twitter name will be Terror Druentus. So thank you.
Or Legendary Druth.
Yes, there's so many possibilities this year.
Or Beetlejuice.
Oh my God! Last year, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. I had nothing, bro. There was nothing that worked, and it sucked. The last year was Drooper Beast for Rob Zombie. I missed it.
Yeah.
Or it could be the coronavirus that's killing the event.
Hey, does anybody have any good guesses on the unknown original that they have listed here on the speculation map?
I don't know. You know, I don't know. I don't know if unknown original genuinely means it's a secret, or if it means that they just, you know, it's not interesting enough for someone to really research. Because
I've heard a couple rumors of either A, possibly something to do with another Yeti, like a mountain Yeti or something, or B, like a sequel to the Scarecrow house.
I've heard the Scarecrow thing too. My prediction is just that it's going to become an IP house instead.
Yeah,
because it's in the Shrek house, right?
Always IPs. So actually,
where is that?
So it's not. So this is something interesting. So normally, this house would be in the Shrek location.
Correct.
But so I had heard chitter chatter. That it was going to be a different location this year. I'm not sure if the plans have changed because
it could be where the Black Lagoon is.
So basically, this house on the map is the entrance of it is where the gate is that the Mardi Gras parade comes out of.
Oh yeah.
Like Cafe La Bamba.
So I don't think they would be using Cafe La Bamba. There's a lot of
Richie Valens house confirmed.
There's a lot of real estate there for a tent. And then because the queues for the houses, they get built up and taken down every day. Yeah. For those temporary ones that, you know, like the ones in the sound stages and things like that. Besides the one for Ghostbusters last year, like the ones for Yeti and Us and stuff, they take them down every day.
Really?
They do. They take them down every night. So they could line the area that the parade comes out of with switchbacks. You know, there's an area back there for a queue. But I think ultimately that it's going to end up in Shrek based on everything that's going on. You know, the only thing that would deter that would be if the park does reopen this summer and Shrek, no one cares about Shrek, let's be honest. But if they're running it at half capacity, they might want to keep both theaters open instead of closing down one theater like they normally do for Halloween Horror Nights.
But, you know, it'd be cool, like, if they could show, like, a movie in there, in the Shrek thing.
No, but the thing, so the other talk is that they just won't have shows altogether, but Shrek, I think, would still be able to operate because there are two theaters, so it would be easier to space everybody out. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, literally nobody cares about that ride when the park is busy, let alone if the park is operating at a quarter of its capacity.
So tell me if I'm wrong here. Didn't I just see something on Twitter where there was a construction permit issued for the Shrek
building? There was. So okay. I definitely think that this was a little bit premature.
Okay.
But there was a rumor of this location being used. I had heard it from somebody else. I truly believe that there was intent for it, whether it have been
for an 11th house
slated to be there or for an 11th house. Yep.
Right.
So this is the area that I've always thought if they were going to expand upon what they have and add a house, this would be the location for it.
Mm-hmm. Because you could do a stage show over in that area too that ties into the house.
But at this point now, I mean, they use that where the stage would be is kind of where the entrance to the Lagoon show is.
Oh, that's true.
So, yeah, there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, obviously there's unknowns about operating status, but there's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of mixed communication, I think, too, amongst leaks and trying to flush people out and stuff.
But we still didn't get what is the original, the unknown original going to be?
I mean, I don't know. It could literally be anything. They can make a house about a pen I'm literally looking at a pen on the desk. It could be about a pen that murders people. It's an unknown original. It can be about anything. Mm-hmm. That's why I think if it goes into Shrek, they almost always do it about movies at Shrek. Like this to me would be the spot if they did something like Candyman. At the front of the park, it's usually like a movie that's kind of current, except last year they did Killer Clowns, but they had like Krampus was there, Saw was there when the new one came out. It's something that like people usually care about. Halloween, the new movie had come out that year, but they weren't able to do it, so they did the old one. You know, it's always something that kind of grabs people's interest when they first walk in. Clowns had the repertoire from the year before.
So you're thinking that's where the secret IP go?
That's my opinion. I think they're flip-flopped.
Okay. All right. Well, it makes sense.
The giant inflatable clown that was deflated half the time.
The one night where he didn't have a nose.
Yeah, his nose was missing. Once in a while, the actors just didn't give a shit, and they just like barely peeked their head out, like,
No.
This clown suit is so heavy.
No.
Paul, any other thoughts?
No, I think we covered the entire speculation map. In the end, if we were to summarize this conversation, which already went way longer than I think we wanted it to, it would be that I think we all hope it happens.
Yes.
We not to delve into the world and because we really just want to escape reality and enjoy this event that we love so much. The hope is that we get to this year in some form or another, and until then, thankfully we have a ton of YouTube videos, official videos, and hopefully better social media content than we've been getting out of the HHN Twitter account coming our way to keep us engaged in the event and with good content. And you can always check back here on for so podcasting.
Somebody's got the Rona.
Someone's got the Rona.
It's got the Rona. Put him down.
That would be the scariest house there this year.
The Rona house.
Just coughing noises everywhere.
Instead of La Llorona, they bring in La Corona.
Oh, we got DJ Kyle, DJ Kitty over there.
Oh, God.
All right, guys. I think we kicked this one.
You said it all.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. Kyle, you want to wrap this thing up?
Yes, visit HHN 30, where hand sanitizer is the #1 seller. Bottles with all of the icons on them instead of the knives this year. It's just bottles of hand sanitizer and HHN masks. The masks are going to sell off the shelves like, annual pass holder preview. People are going to go in there and clear out all of the HHN masks with just the bottom part of like Jack's face on it or Eddie's mask.
They'll make like the dude from American Horror Story, the twisty ones where it's just like the crazy clown face.
Yeah. It'll certainly be a memorable year regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the year. Plus, all of your Mardi Gras 2020 T-shirts will be on clearance.
Man, I'm still bitter. I'm still bitter about it. I was a week away.
It's probably a good thing that you didn't come, Tom.
Probably.
Because the weekend I was going to come, the only weekend I had actually free to come would have been St. Patrick's Day weekend, which was the last weekend that I think it actually happened. So,
was that Marshmallow weekend?
I don't know.
No, Marshmallow was the week after that.
Okay, so I guess it wasn't the last weekend. But regardless,
you were there a week before I was again.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. I find out your schedule first and then book mine.
Smart man. Hey, I got an idea for a title for this podcast. It might have been
I'm afraid to know.
The HHN 30 long ass podcast, but let's face it, you ain't got shit else to do anyway. So just
literally that's so true, dude. Like, what else are we gonna do?
Right.
Let's just speculate. Even if we just talk amongst friends and record it and someone listens, that's cool, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I guess.
It is. It's good catching up with you guys. It's been 6 months. For anyone listening, leave us comments, hit us up on social media. It will be good to hear from you and speculate and talk Halloween Horror Nights, because that's why we're here. We enjoy this this bleep.
I was here because Drew asked me to come.
I live for this.
So on that note, I think we really have said it all.
Bye.
We'll be back next week with version 3 of the map.
Version 2.1.3.
And we will speculate on what drinks they'll have at the bar. Prefab drinks. Square cups or round cups?
Whatever. Just give me
Square
all
cups.
the please.
It's all square cups now, man. There's no icons. It's square cups.
Last year was round, dude.
Dogs
You
living
probably
with
won't-
cats.
You probably won't even be able to go into Finn's because there'll be too many people standing next to each other.
I gave up on that place.
Well, we thought we were done. I think we're done.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, we're done. Goodbye.
See ya. Bye.